Okay guys, before we actually start, I just want to go through real quick. We have the area formulas that we worked with just, Friday, I think. So, area formulas. Reason why is I just wanted you to be able to identify these by name. So what we got here is, take out your notes real quick or pause the video and grab this. So first thing we have is a triangle. Triangle is area is equal to 1/2 base times height. Rectangle, length times width, or base times height. It doesn't matter which word you're using. Square is the side squared. Parallelogram is just area equals base times height. It just means all the opposite sides here are parallel. So this is parallel to this. This is parallel to this. Trapezoid, one set is parallel. So trapezoid we have here. Circle, area equals pi r squared. It's kind of blended together a little bit. Sorry about that. And then semicircle. Semicircle is just half of a circle, okay? And that's just 1/2 pi r squared. So I just want you to be able to have the names associated with this when we're going through this section. So looking at the first practice problem, what you're gonna do is split this into smaller shapes. So you're gonna find whatever shapes you got. So for right now, I'm gonna look at the blue one. I'm gonna say this is shape number 1. And shape number 1 is a rectangle. And it's a rectangle, so I'm gonna say the area is equal to length times width, okay? Then I'm gonna look back here. This shape here, we're gonna call this the brown shape. This is gonna be shape number 2. And that's called a trapezoid. One set of parallel lines here and here, okay? So let's go about actually finding these areas. So looking for, and sorry about that, I'll actually throw on here, your area is equal to 1/2 height, base 1 plus base 2. Okay, so what we have here is, let's start with the rectangle. It's a little easier. So you want to find length times width, and if you can see, it's 23 times 12. 23 times 12. And then we're just going to multiply those, and we get 276. Okay. I go over here, I have trapezoid. Now trapezoid is 1/2 height times base 1 plus base 2. You know the bases are the ones that are parallel. So these two are my bases, okay? So I'm actually gonna start there pretty much. I have the 1/2, we'll find the height after. But let's fill in our bases. So the bases are 15, and here you gotta think, okay, what's this length? Well, this is a rectangle, and this is 23, so this is also gonna be 23 here, okay? So this is gonna be 23. Thing we're missing is its height. I'm gonna draw this altitude here with its right angle. We need to find that length, so you kind of have to look through here. Now, I've already looked at the problem enough to know what it is, but you do have to just take a little bit to look. So the whole thing here is 18, okay? And this part here is 12. So you want to find the remaining height, which would be here. So I do 18 minus 12, and that's giving me 6. So this part is 6. So I actually do know the height now. So I'm going to just throw that down into my equation. That's 6. And I'm just going to start multiplying. So 1/2 times 6 is 3. And that's multiplied by 15 plus 23, which is 38. I have area is equal to 114. And now what I have to do is think, okay, so this thing here has an area of 276. This has an area of 114. How do you find the full area? Think sum, you're just adding the two together. So that's our last step here. So I have the final area is equal to 276 plus 114, which is equal to 390. And these, they're giving you units, so make sure you have units. Area is always units squared, so here it's going to be centimeters squared. Okay, so for number 2, what we have here is, I can see there's a middle figure at least. And in this case, if I look, those are going to parallel, those are parallel. This is going to end up being a parallelogram, okay? So this is going to be my first shape. So I'm going to say, okay, this is parallelogram. And the area for parallelograms is base times height. Here's the other thing. Let's look here. If this is 6, this is also 6. But if this is parallelograms, they're the same on each side. So this is also 6, this is also 6, okay? So right now you have a semicircle and a semicircle. So I can count them as 2 different shapes. Or you can say those semicircles have the exact same radius. So they're the same shape. If I shove them together, you just create one circle. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna say, okay, well, these together are we're gonna call this shape number 2, okay? And number 2 is going to just be a circle, okay? So area of a circle is equal to pi r squared. Yet again, you could break it up and do 2 different semicircles and add all 3 together. It doesn't really matter, honestly. Looking at the parallelogram, I always know height has to have the altitude. It has to be the right angle here. So that's going to be 5. And what it's perpendicular to is my base. So this whole thing, well, 6 and 6 give you 12. So the base is 12. We know that in our heads. That's 60. Going over here, I have area equals pi. My radius is 6 squared. Area is equal to 36 pi. And when I put that in for the decimal, because that's what we're going to be using in this one, if I put that in for its decimal, it's 113.1. And make sure you're rounding to 2 decimals. This is it, rounded to 2 decimals. It would just have the 0 after it. Last thing, I'm just going to add the 2 together. So I have my area is equal to 60 plus 113.1. Area is equal to 173.1 inches squared. Okay, so looking at this, we have a couple of shapes that I can see automatically. We have triangle there. I'm going to say that's my first shape. I have a beautifully drawn semicircle. I swear I'm getting better. I apologize if it still doesn't look that great. Semicircle. And 3, I have this nice rectangle. Always nice to see rectangles in there. Okay. So I'm just gonna go, okay, well, I do know their areas. Area is equal to 1/2 base times height. Area, so full circle is pi r squared, so semicircle is 1/2 pi r squared. Rectangle is base times height, or length times width. Yours went by length times width. Generally, I actually do base times height more, but we're going with it. Okay, so let's look at what we got. I'm gonna fill in whatever I can. So I'm gonna say here, let me use a different color. Let's go with this. Here is going to be right angles. These 2 are supplementary. This is 90, this is also gonna be 90. This part is 9. This part has to be 9. Let's go with the fact of this is the really tricky but like honestly really cool part of this. Do you guys see how this is 9? That's the radius. If the radius is 9, all radii have to be 9, no matter what. So over here is also 9, but this is the trick. Draw the radius that goes straight down. It goes down right to the bottom here. That's also going to be 9. That's the trick here, okay? So what else do I see? This part here is 7, right? This part is 9. Yet again, not drawn to scale. We have to find the remaining part, so 26 is the whole thing, so I'm going to say 26 minus 9 minus 7, which is giving me 10. So this part here is 10. Okay, so let's get started and let's at least see what we got. Triangle. Triangle is equal to 1/2 base times height. So it equals 1/2 the base, and the height has to be 90 degrees. There's the two that you're working with, base, height. So my base is 9. My height, I actually don't have it written out yet, but it's right here. So I look over here, and the height is 10 there. So I go down to my problem, I fill it in. 1/2 times 10 is 5. 5 times 9 is 45. Semicircle area is equal to 1/2. This should be your easier of the two. Radius is 9, or the 3, sorry about that. Okay, it's 1/2 times pi times 81, which gives me area is equal to 127.23. Looking good here. Rectangle, area is equal to length times width. 9 times this whole length, which is 7 plus 10. 7 plus 10 is equal to 17. So this length is 17. So it's 9 times 17. Area is equal to 153. So now I'm just going to add all of them together. I have area is equal to 45 plus 127.23 plus 153. And that gives me 325.23 feet squared. Remember, I read into the hundredths. That's a good place to round to. Moving on to the next one. Okay, so looking at this next one, I have two shapes that I see right away. I see a real nice semicircle. Okay. I'm not sure if you can see this on screen, so I'll move it down in a second. And a triangle. 2 is a triangle. And I'm just putting both of their areas. Area is equal to 1/2 base times height. Area is equal to 1/2 pi r squared. Okay, so let's get into what we actually have. Looking at the picture, this 16 represents the diameter here. So I'm going to take 16, divide it in 2, and I get 8. So each of these parts here are 8. Okay? So I look at my semicircle. I can actually do my semicircle already. I have area is equal to 1/2 pi. My radius is 8. That's squared. It ends up being 1/2 times pi times 64, which gives you area is equal to 100.53. But I want to look at my triangle. This is the trickier part of this. I have a base, but I have no height. Height can't be this way because this is not a right angle. So I'm going to draw an altitude here, okay? I'm drawing the height, and I'm putting a right angle there, okay? We need to find that. So I look. This is 8, this is 17, I don't have this. It's a right triangle. I'm just gonna throw X there, okay? I don't know how to, or I don't know what to do at least with it right now. So let me get this real quick. I'm gonna have you look at this. Okay? That part right there. I'm gonna draw it out over here. This length here is 8. This length here is 17. This length here is X. I can find that using the Pythagorean theorem. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to say, okay, that's across from the right angle. So I have 17 squared equals X squared plus 8 squared. Then we just do a little bit of math gymnastics here. We get 289 equals X squared plus 64. Subtract 64 to the other side. Subtract 64. I get 225 equals X squared. We want to undo the square. Let's square root. I get 15 equals x. That's going to go there. Now I have the height. So let's go back into the triangle. Area is equal to 1/2 the base. Whole thing here. Base is going to be 16. Height, 15. So really it's 8 times 15, which we get as 120. Last step here is I'm just going to add them. I'm going to say, okay, my area is 100.53 plus 120. Area is equal to 220.53, and that's meters squared. And that's lovely. Okay, so we're going to go into the next part of the section. It just wants the shaded regions. So if you look at this first one, number 6, the shaded region is going to be that whole, or the whole area outside. But how we're going to think about getting it is if we got the entire area and then we took the circle and we took it out, okay? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to find the whole area, the entire area, and then we're going to take out the unshaded part. So I'm going to think, okay, area is equal to entire minus unshaded. Okay? So I have 2 currently. I have this whole thing, and I have the circle. Okay? So looking at what we have, if the whole thing here, because it's in the middle, is 25, I just do 25 divided by 2. I get 12.5. So each little part here is 12.5, 12.5. Okay? So here's what happens. If I look, do you see how this length to this length is 12.5? That means this length to this length, the same length, should also be 12.5. Okay? That's my radius. So looking at that, if this was 12.5, this would also be 12.5. This would be 12.5, right? And so on. So I'm going to look over here real quick. If this was 12.5 and this is 12.5, this whole area is now 25. So this definitely is a square, okay? So looking at my 2 shapes, I have the entire shape is a square, where my area is equal to side squared, and my unshaded region is a circle. And the circle's area is equal to pi r squared, and I'm just going to fill in from there. So if I think square, the side is 25, area is equal to 25 squared, which we know is 625. Circle, oops, sorry, wrong color. Area is equal to pi r squared, where radius is going to be 12.5. So I get area is equal to, what is this, 156.25 pi, which is equal to 490.87. What am I going to do with that? Plug it into my formula. So my formula was up here. It's entire minus unshaded. So I'm taking the entire, I'm subtracting the unshaded. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to do this minus this. So I have area is equal to 625 minus 490.87, which is equal to 134.13 feet. And this is still area, so we still have that it's squared. Okay, so we're looking at the last one that I'm going to go over, number 8. So what we have is 2 shapes right now. I can see the entire thing is a semicircle. The entire is a semicircle. Okay, and that we're gonna say is gonna be green for us. So that's gonna be area is equal to 1/2 pi r squared. And I'm gonna say my unshaded, in this case, is a triangle. And that is going to be our blue. Okay, so I have area is equal to 1/2 base times height. Now this has two different things that I would say are not tricks, but they're just extra things that make it a little bit harder to find our answer. Number one is the fact that currently I have no numbers here. I'm definitely going to need that. If it's a semicircle, I don't have any radii. The other thing is, this is actually, if you drew it out and you thought of it like this, I currently have this drawn. We've seen this in the circles chapter. So what happens is, if I look, this is currently an inscribed angle where its endpoints lie on the diameter. So what happens? Technically, this whole thing is 180, so it's half of it. So this is 90 here, okay? So if I look, endpoints lie on a diameter, so it's gonna be 90 degrees. So I can throw in my 90 degrees there. That's why I can do that. That was the first trick. Second trick is, let's get this length, okay? Because we now have a right triangle, I'm able to say, okay, I'm gonna pull that right triangle out right here. This length here, it says is 9. This length here, it says is 21.6. I want this length, let's call it x, okay? So I'm going to use the Pythagorean theorem, always a crowd favorite. It's gonna be x squared equals 9 squared plus 21.6 squared. X squared equals 547.56 when I added them together. I'm gonna square root each side. I get x is equal to 23.4. So this whole length here is equal to 23.4. So this diameter is 23.4. Okay? I wanna find its, I wanna find the radius. So I'm just gonna take this and I'm gonna divide it by 2, which gives me 11.7. So I have 11.7 here, 11.7. I'm pretty much ready to go into my problem at this point. So semicircle, just need a radius, that's it. I have the radius, if you look, radius is 11.7. I have 11.7 squared. Area is equal to square this. I get 1/2 pi times 136.89. Almost there. We're going to multiply. I get 215.03. Awesome. Let's go on to that next one. Unshaded triangle. So looking here, okay, I want the base and the height. For it to be base and height, yes, you can draw this line down, but this makes it super tricky and it's not even worth it. I don't even honestly think we could get that, okay, from what we have. However, we already have the right angle. It's right here. So this can be my base and my height, okay? So I have area is equal to 1/2 base is 9, height is 21.6. I have area is equal to 97.2. I'm gonna find the area, the total area of the shaded region. So the area of shaded is going to be, area of shaded is equal to the entire minus the unshaded. So my entire is 215.03 minus 97.2, which is going to give me 117.83 meters squared. And that's me done this section. I'm gonna go find out if I drew a line there, could I figure out the height there?